Dear students, good morning and welcome back. If everything was perfect, you would never learn and you would never grow. Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Life is what happens when you are busy making other plans. Have you faced any accident and got injuries? Yes, accidents are like death waiting for us everywhere, unavoidable and inevitable. Though we plan, they defy our planning. Do you feel that human sufferings and problems common? As Helen Keller said, although the world is full of suffering, it is full also of the overcoming of it. Do you believe that God tests people by giving sufferings? Yes, most of us believe that God tests his people through hardships. Do you feel happy with what you have? Yes, most of us believe that it is not how much we have, but how much we enjoy that makes happiness. Happiness depends on ourselves. Let us read it and find out from the lesson In Celebration of Being Alive, written by Christian Bernard. I repeat, the title is In Celebration of Being Alive. It was written by Christian Bernard. Here, celebration means an enjoyable activity held to celebrate something like a birthday celebration. What is to be celebrated here? Celebration of being alive means having life in opposition to dead. Let us know about the author Christian Bernard. He was born in 1922 and passed away in the year 2001. He was a South African heart surgeon. He did the world's first heart transplant operation. His father was a church pastor and his family was not rich. One of his four brothers, Abraham, died of a heart problem at the age of 5. His famous books are One Life, The Second Life, The Donor, and The 50 Ways to a Healthy Heart. This is about the author Christian Bernard. So once again, the title of this essay is In Celebration of Being Alive. It was written by Dr. Christian Bernard. Before going into the actual lesson, in this session, I want to explain the first four paras of the lesson from page number 41 of the textbook. So, let us know some difficult words, know the meanings of some difficult words that you come across in these first four paras. The first one is prevalent. Prevalent means it's an adjective and it means existing very commonly. Prevalent means existing very commonly. For example, this can be used in a sentence like, these prejudices are particularly prevalent among the people living in the north. I repeat, these prejudices are particularly prevalent among the people living in the north. Next, gloomy. Gloomy is an adjective. It means nearly dark. Nearly dark, or that makes you feel sad. For example, it was a wet and gloomy day. It was a wet and a gloomy day. Next, stem. Stem, this word here used as verb. Stem means originate in or be caused by. It means originate in or be caused by. It can be used in a sentence like, many of the problems in cities stem from rapid expansion. Many of the problems in cities stem from rapid expansion. Next, agony. It's a noun. Agony means extreme physical or mental pain. For example, Jack collapsed in agony on the floor. Perforate. Perforate is a verb. Perforate means pierce and make holes through something. For example, he was taken to the hospital to undergo an emergency surgery for a perforated heart. Next word, ennoble. Ennoble means to make somebody a member of nobility. Ennoble means to make somebody a member of nobility. For example, in a strange way, she seemed ennobled by her grief. Next, thrashing. Thrashing means it's a noun. It means hitting very hard with a stick. For example, his teacher thrashed him for his lies. Next word, moldy. Moldy is moldy. Moldy is an adjective. It means old and not in good condition. Moldy. Molds and boozu pattina. For example, strawberries go moldy very quickly. Okay, understand the difficult words? Now, let us go to let us know a few lines about the lesson. So, what is the title of this essay? In celebration of being alive. So, here it is a story narrated by Christian Bernard about an accident that he had faced along with his wife and the lessons he had learned from the children in the hospital. So, the essay In Celebration of Being Alive is a story narrated by Christian Bernard about an accident that he had faced along with his wife and the lessons he had learned from the children in the hospital. So, let us read the first para. More and more, as I near the end of my career as a heart surgeon, my thoughts have turned to the consideration of why people should suffer. Suffering seems so cruelly prevalent in the world today. Do you know that of the 125 million children born this year, 12 million are unlikely to reach the age of 1 and another 6 million will die before the age of 5? And of the rest, many will end up as mental or physical cripples. In this para, the writer, who is the writer? Christian Bernard. He describes the statistical data of children. So here I refers to the narrator. Who is the narrator? Christian Bernard. So what was his profession? See, what was his profession? I refers to Dr. Christian Bernard. What was his profession? See the second line. Heart surgeon. So he was a heart surgeon. See the word consideration. What does it mean? Consideration means careful thought. So here another word, cripples. Cripples means disabled. అంగవైకల్యంతో బాధపడటం. So here in this para, he gives the statistical data of the children born in that year. So who is the narrator here? Dr. Christian Bernard. What was his profession? A heart surgeon. So according to him, how many million children born that year? About 125 million. So of that, how many die before the age of reaching 1? About 12 million die before the age of 1. And another 6 million will die before the age of 5. That means before reaching the age of 5, how many people are, how many children are dying? About 6 million people. What happens to the remaining? So many will end up as mental or physical cripples. As I told you, cripples means disabled. So in this first para, the author says that of the 125 million children born this year, 12 million are unlikely to reach the age of 1 and another 6 million will die before the age of 5. And of the rest, many will end up as mental or physical cripples. Okay. Now let us move on to the next para. Let us read. My gloomy thoughts probably stem from an accident I had a few years ago. One minute I was crossing the street with my wife after a lovely meal together, and the next minute a car had hit me and knocked me into my wife. She was thrown into the other lane and struck by a car coming from the opposite direction. So here in this para, he describes an accident which he had met once. When he was crossing the road with his wife, a car hit him and knocked him into his wife. She was thrown on the other lane and was hit by a car from the opposite direction. Thus the accident occurred. Here, so here in this para, the author described about an accident that had taken place when he was walking, when he was crossing the road with his wife. Next, during the next few days in the hospital, I experienced not only agony and fear but also anger. I could not understand why my wife and I had to suffer. I had 11 broken ribs and a perforated lung. My wife had a badly fractured shoulder. Over and over, I asked myself, why should this happen to us? I had work to do. After all, there were patients waiting for me to operate on them. My wife had a young baby who needed her care. So here, agony means extreme pain. In this para, the author describes the after effects of the accident and how he had suffered. So how he had suffered? he had suffered from the fracture of ribs and a perforated lung. Perforated lung means the ribs pierced through the lungs. పక్కటెముకలు లంగ్స్లో ఊపిరితిత్తుల్లో గుచ్చుకోవడం వల్ల హోల్స్ పడిపోయినాయి అన్నమాట లంగ్స్కి. సో దస్ హీ సఫర్డ్. అండ్ హిస్ వైఫ్ హ్యాడ్ ఏ ఫ్రాక్చర్డ్ షోల్డర్. వాట్ డిడ్ హిస్ వైఫ్ హ్యాడ్? ఏ ఫ్రాక్చర్డ్ shoulder. Her shoulder was broken and he had a lot of work to do because he is a doctor. Many patients are waiting for him, and his wife also had a small baby, young baby who needed her care. So this was the situation there. Next para. My father, had he still been alive, would have said, "My son, it's God will. That's the way God tests you. Suffering ennobles you and makes you a better person. But as a doctor, I see nothing noble in a patient suffering around in a sweat-soaked bed, mind clouded in agony. Nor can I see any nobility in the crying of a lonely child in a ward at night." So, when he was in the hospital, when Bernard was in the hospital, he reflected on what his father would have said. What his father would have said: suffering is God's way of testing, refining, purifying, and ennobling us. But Bernard did not see anything noble about the patient suffering or a child crying lonely in a hospital bed. See, he feels that there is nothing noble about this suffering. Next. I had my first introduction to the suffering of the children when I was a little boy. One day, my father showed me a half-eaten moldy biscuit with 2 tiny tooth marks in it. And he told me about my brother who had died several years earlier. He told me about the suffering of this child who had been born with an abnormal heart. If he had been normal today, probably someone could have corrected the heart problem, but in those days, they don't have sophisticated heart surgery, and this moldy biscuit was the last biscuit my brother had eaten before his death. So in this para, Bernard narrated how he was introduced to the suffering of the children for the first time. He says, one day his father showed him a half-eaten biscuit. The biscuit was half-eaten. It was the last one his brother had before he died of a heart problem. So it was the last biscuit that was eaten by his brother when he had died because of the heart problem. Bernard feels that in those days the heart surgeries are not sophisticated as advanced. That means not sophisticated means not as advanced as today. Okay, so we have completed the 4 paras. Now let us recollect what we have learned. Christian Bernard was a South African heart surgeon. He narrates about the accident he had faced along with his wife and the lessons he had learned from the children in the hospital. When he was in the hospital, he reflected on what his father would have said: suffering is God's way of testing and ennobling us. Bernard did not see anything noble about the suffering of the patients in the hospital. One day his father showed him the half-eaten biscuit. It was the last one his brother had before he died of a heart problem. Bernard found the suffering of the children miserable. They trust doctors and nurses and finally accept their fate. Hope you have understood the 4 paras of this lesson. We shall meet again in the next session.